Okay. And we are live.
Oh, nice. Okay, happy to be here.
Vera Garg, welcome to You've Got Mel. What a great pleasure.
Likewise.
And where are you sitting now?
I'm sitting in a suburb of New Delhi called Gurgaon in my study. Yeah, I'm sitting here I've been living in Gurgaon for the last 20 years.
Okay, and it's about 9 p.m. in New Delhi?
No, it's 7:30 p.m.
7:30. Okay, so only 3.5 hours.
Yeah, 9 p.m. would have been like almost my bedtime, so it would have been tough to talk. I sleep early. I get up very early because I do meditation in the morning, so I like to get up by 4:30. So
I can't do meditation because it makes me nervous.
oh, I do meditation because it makes me not nervous, like it calms me. So for the opposite reason.
It's supposed to calm you, but it doesn't work for me. Anyway, Vera, we have to start out with the jingle. We always start out with the jingle. So we're going to start with the jingle. And then we'll talk all about you.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the jingle?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have much choice.
Get a chair, grab a seat, or we'll sweep you off your feet. We move, we groove, you got Mel. Ease your legs, rest a while, all you gotta do is smile. We're swell, can't you tell, you got Mel. When the show begins, you better hold on real tight, or before you know it, you'll be high as a kite. Take a break, settle down, we're the only show in town. SRO, don't you know, you got Mel. Give it up, don't think twice, we're a hurricane on ice. What the hell, give a yell, ring your bell, show and tell. Mademoiselle, give a smell, you got Mel.
You've got Mel.
Get a
Oh, no, once is enough. And Mel has Vera. Vera Garg, so great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So shut me up. Start at the beginning and tell us all about your childhood, your life, your twin brother, you, and the story of Vera.
Okay, so I was born into a government family, middle class. Sort of, my father was in the Indian Navy. My mother was a teacher at college, and I was born in New Delhi. Moved around a lot as a service, somebody whose father was in the defense services. But the interesting thing about my story is when I was 1.5 years old, I moved to Ireland, and I lived in Belfast in Northern Ireland because my father had gone to bring back India's first, among other people, he was on the commissioning crew to bring back India's first naval aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant. And it was being refurbished in Belfast at the shipyard there. So we lived there for 2 years. I was very young, but my mother tells us stories of how she still wore a sari, and she was a strange woman in Ireland, like they'd never seen somebody in a sari. So people would sometimes shut their doors and that kind of thing. But she bashed on regardless with her little twins. I have a twin brother, so two of us were a year and a half old, and we were about 3.5 years old when we came back. So, and then we came back to Delhi, and then to Bombay, and then to Wellington, the Staff College, and Bombay, and in and out. But largely, I'd say I grew up in Bombay, in Mumbai, and then did my school and college, later part of my school and college from there.
Why do Western people call it Bombay when it should be Mumbai?
So Bombay was the name given by the Portuguese when actually one of I think it came in dowry. Either the British gave the Portuguese, when they married, they gave Bombay in dowry for the wedding, and so it had a colonial overtone. And so then when India got independence and a few years later, they decided it's good to rename. So all the cities where the British had their strongholds, like Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, were renamed Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. So
it took us a few dozen more years, though.
I know, I didn't say Bombay. You saw I said Bombay. Mumbai seems like something else, not the place I grew up in. So it's difficult. You can't change history by changing a name. There's too much associated with it, but yeah.
So we talked earlier about the importance of names.
Yeah. So I feel really strongly, I read this book called Namesake. I don't know if you've read it. It's by an Indian author called Jhumpa Lahiri. I believe she won the Booker Prize, or she was definitely shortlisted. It's quite brilliant. And basically the thesis is that uh, we take on the characteristics of our name. So it's good to name wisely. Name your children wisely, because my mother named me Veera, from the root word Veer, which in Sanskrit means brave. And I have a twin brother whose name is Viren, also from brave. And I think I didn't have a choice. I had to be brave. Maybe intrinsically I wasn't, but I've always projected a brave front. And I think in doing so, I've become brave too. I'm pretty fearless. I'm not scared of things. And I was inspired by Gandhi in India, who said, if there's freedom from fear, then like he would tell the British, put me to jail, beat me, even kill me. But what else can you take from me? I'm fearless. So I'm not like Gandhi, but I'm fairly fearless. I don't fear things. I'm strong.
You're not afraid of anything.
Well, I'm going to tell you a secret, and this is funny. I'm really afraid of cats, but it must be so. I'm not afraid of a lion or a tiger. If I was to get stuck, I'll cope. I'm not afraid of most things, but I'm very scared of cats, even small ones. Like I feel I'll pass out if there's a cat in a room with me. So I don't know what. I've tried to trace back. I don't recall anything. So maybe in my past life, in India and Hindus, we believe in past lives, and there's a possibility of 84,000 lives. So in some life, I probably had an interaction with a cat, which was not good. But yeah, so I am, yeah, but I'm also a little scared of roller coasters. So cats and roller coasters, but otherwise pretty fearless.
That's terrific. So you could be an astronaut.
I could be, yes. I could be. I wanted to, I would have loved to be a journalist in a war-torn area. I admire, especially the women, Amanpur and others in India. We have a Barkhadat who goes to the borders, and, that's so exciting to me. But times and conditions were different. My parents were fairly liberal, but I don't think they would have accepted a journalist going to war areas. So I just did what worked best for me. I became a history teacher.
I was going to say, so instead of being a war correspondent,
yeah,
or an army colonel,
yeah, I became a history teacher.
Okay, so did you always love history?
I loved history, but I think I grew to love it more. I wasn't born saying I mean, now often, because I've taught for 36 years, and my students, I must be doing something right, though I always feel a sort of imposter syndrome. You're a teacher, so like you go to class and say, I wasn't prepared, these kids are going to catch me. I feel that way, but the kids don't see it that way. They do appreciate and admire what I do. Many of them tell me they went on to study history because they enjoyed my classes. So, but I wasn't born to be a history teacher. I kind of, what's the word? I just stumbled into it. I was looking for something to do, and I did well in history at my bachelor's level. And then I said, let me do a master's, and I did well. And then I decided I wanted to do research on modern Indian history. And there was a famous professor, Dr. Bipin Chandra, who was in Delhi at a university called JNU. And I thought, if I could only work with him, it felt like a far stretch. But I wrote to him after my master's and said, I've always wanted to work on the political thought of the moderate nationalists. Will you accept me as a student? He asked me to write a few papers. He said, okay, done. So I did my MPhil from there with him, which was a fantastic experience, because Bombay is a little sheltered with academics. And then I came into this, it's kind of leftist, but very research oriented university. Lots of good research was coming, and I was a bit awestruck, and I used to sit a bit quietly in the beginning, and then it was so I did my MPhil with him, and then I began teaching in colleges in India, history. And then when we moved to Singapore, the government somehow didn't recognize Indian degrees to teach at university, which was made me quite angry actually, because I'm quite proud of my Indian degree. But then I was just flipping through a newspaper and I saw an advertisement for a A-level history teacher at the international school. And I said, I need to be working. I've always been teaching. And so I started teaching in school in Singapore at high school, mostly 11th and 12th grades. And then I liked what I did because you're a teacher, I don't know. But in college, it's a little more impersonal. In school, it's, you have those 15 students and you get very involved in their lives and you become a counselor. And, I liked that. So then when we moved back to Delhi, then I continued teaching at high school, at the American school in Delhi now. I teach the IB program for history, which I appreciate. I think the IB makes students think. It's not by rote. It's a little different to the system I grew up in. So I wanted to teach history like my teachers did not teach, not like my teachers taught. And so that's my journey as a history teacher.
So I have a million questions.
Okay.
And you're going to excuse me. So first of all, I don't believe in reincarnation, okay. But still there is something Indian about me.
Okay.
And I was in a taxi once in Vancouver, and the driver, he asked me if I was from the Punjab.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And I said no, but maybe, a few generations ago, you never know. Right. I have so many questions, Vera. So people from Israel and from other places, they don't understand India at all, really. And one thing that I don't get is the animosity between the Hindus and the Muslims. Is this a political thing? Is this something that's fanned by the political parties?
Okay, I can, you don't want to ask me these kind of questions. I can talk a lot about it. I teach, but basically the Hindus and Muslims could coexisted very peacefully. And even in an island like Indonesia and Bali, the Hindus and Muslims celebrate each other's festivals. There's no intrinsic difference. What happened is that when in the Middle Ages, in the 15th, 16th century, the Turks and they came through Afghanistan into India and they settled here. India's had a long history of invaders, and that was okay because India says, okay, if you were powerful enough to come and settle here, you rule. So they ruled and Indians accepted it. It was peaceful and that was for 300 years till the colonial powers came, like the British. And they had to divide and rule, right? How would they control a country this size? So they began looking at Muslim history as different to Hindu history. And they began suggesting to Hindus that, look, the Muslims came and imposed their taxes on you and governed you. But Indians didn't. There was no example of a religious revolt. But suddenly by the 20th century, these two groups can't stand each other. There were some other reasons too. It's a question of scarcity. There were lesser jobs. Somehow the Hindus were more educated, so the Muslims resented. But essentially, it's political. It's man. I mean, there's no essential difference, and they lived peacefully. The Muslim rulers had their best friends as Hindus, and likewise. So
it sounds like something that the British did in Palestine.
Yes. A lot like, or the way, like what they've done in the Middle East, basically, playing God, dividing borders to suit themselves. That.
So Vera, what is this? So we have this syndrome, you and I, because I'm Canadian and Israeli, that the British ruined our history, and yet we love everything about the UK. So, I love Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. I love milk tea. I love Oxford Street.
I think, there are two things, Mel. One is that colonialism by nature is not good, right? It exploits, but even the Indians would do it if they could, right? And they did in the 4th century. They had gone into parts of Southeast Asia. So I think there's an understanding that it was beyond the nationality of the people, that when you come into a country and you can, then you use it for your benefit. So I think Indians are willing to accept that, yes, there was drain of wealth, and yes, India moved from one of the richer countries to the poorer, but India might have done it too. So I think that is there. And the second is this whole idea of karma, and that you get what you deserve, and you should accept it, and then better things will come instead of fighting it. So I think the combination of the two makes us appreciate, that okay, they came for a reason, we accept it, they've gone now, and it's fine. So
But we still have the problems here and over there that they left us with. And it's like, for you guys, it's since 1949. For us guys, it's since 1948.
But still, I think, Mel, it's 70 plus years. We could have got our act together too. So sometimes I say, to look, and again, as a history teacher, we look from both sides, but I'm saying they didn't divide and rule. They ruled and we divided among ourselves. Why couldn't we get our act together too? So it's a combination of both. Yeah, I don't blame the British entirely. And even though they did it for their own benefit, they did bring modernization earlier than could have come, by introduction of railways, by English education. The fact that they decided they don't want to be bothered learning the Indian languages. So they just said, teach this whole nation English. But it brought us together, right? Today I can communicate with you. Otherwise, a Bengali couldn't talk to a Maharashtrian and so on. So it's quite interesting. I think
I never thought of that, but they brought the language to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that a lot of Indians speak English, and it's one of our official languages. And actually, our national movement was a result of both what I call whip and carrot. Whip is the wrong things they did, the racism, the drain of wealth, the poverty and the unfair tax, unfair legislation. But the carrot is the English education, the railways, they did love Oriental stuff. They revived a lot of our history and redeciphered old pillars and so on. So it was, again, I'm not a practicing ritualistic Hindu, but I believe a lot in Hindu philosophy. So one of the things that comes with that and my meditative practice is acceptance with awareness. So just accept what happened. There was a reason and it taught us something. So take the good out of it. So I would say that.
And I'm not a Muslim, but I'm sure that there's nothing in the Quran against the Hindu people.
No, absolutely not. And likewise for the Hindu religion. I think this is all just it. The wedge got created because of various reasons, like perceiving these two as different communities. And when I teach communalism, I always say wise governments like maybe Singapore and so on, there are three distinct communities: the Tamils, the Malays, meaning the Hindus, the Muslims, and the Buddhists and Christians. But they keep communalism at the first level. They don't allow it to, if the government isn't wise and they start perceiving themselves as different, then the religion becomes in danger and then there's no coming back, So a wise government could have kept this. Yes, there are Hindus and Muslims, they can live peacefully. But the government didn't want it at that time because they could divide and rule through that.
And the other great thing, there's two great things. There's cricket.
Yes.
Which I don't like.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, but tea with milk.
That you like. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. What about Bollywood? The third big thing in India is Bollywood. No, okay.
Okay, so we want to talk now about a little bit about Israel and India.
Right.
Again, you're a historian. For the past few years, we have a love affair with India, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
And is this going to continue?
I hope so, because really, the first about 20 years I went to Dharamshala and I was surprised, that's where the Dalai Lama lives, in the hills in northern part of India. And there were so many Israeli students who had come there and who were living there and inspired by Dalai Lama. All over in India, we welcome. And so in some of these touristy places, they say Israeli food, like they're serving because they're welcoming tourists. So it's so nice. And I hope it continue. I'm sure it will continue. And our governments have a great relationship too. And as individuals we do. So what does your country say about about Indians?
I think that we love Indians. I mean, what is not to love?
And we
Nice, lovely, welcoming people who we can converse with, and we share a common colonial culture.
That's right. And a long ancient history, right?
Yeah.
One of the oldest. So,
So I think that that's wonderful. So let's talk now about education and what's wrong with it.
yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm I mean, I think education has changed a lot. I recently attended a talk by the Dalai Lama. You know, his new thing is on social emotional learning. And I'm so appreciative. And now, I mean, in the past, like in India, it was the colonial system and the Jesuit colleges, and, you know, they were the nuns and the priests, and they would rap you on your knuckles when you don't polish your shoes. And so that became so important, the form rather than the substance. But now I'm pleased to say both in the international system and the local systems, there's a lot of recognition of what good education should be. And like I said, social emotional learning, my favorite line by Maya Angelou, who says, you know, people will forget what you did and what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And we remember that as teachers. You know, I think it's so powerful to recognize that it doesn't matter if they don't remember what year a battle was fought, but if they remember the emotions that were happening, and also if we as teachers can recognize that. So I'd like to say we have a long way to go, but I think there is a focus now on social and emotional well-being in education, and along with you know, along with compassionate service sort of stuff. You know, there's a lot on service learning too, which is built into curriculums. So today we're even teaching math and science through creating responsible global citizens. So I think we're moving in that
Wow.
direction. Yeah. I mean, there's a long
You want that you get credit for doing good things?
Yeah, you actually do, and that's interesting. But it's a long way to go. It's just being built into some curriculums, but in schools there's a recognition, because earlier service was just lip service, right? You'd write it on a certificate and you'd go and do something. But now I think there's a recognition that if you put it into the curriculum, then it, you know, and then there's a lot on stages of service learning and how you move. So, and there's a long way to go, but it's beginning. And I had mentioned to you before we went on live that that's an interest of mine. I'm very interested in young people getting involved in service, because I think students, people with a purpose, then develop not only a lifelong passion, but they're less likely to go into problems and trouble and so on. But having said that, you know, the students are still writing that exam, their grades are still dependent on that. So there is a long way to go, but at least there's recognition. There are internal assessments and other things that, you know, students
Vera,
can.
when you say service, you mean like volunteering, right? For
Yeah.
good things.
Yes, I mean, one is community service, which where students volunteer, but the second is service learning, where it's built into the curriculum. So there's an understanding of why service is important too,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's powerful, because one is the actual physical doing, the second is the understanding of why it's important to be done. If that can be taught in schools, then I think a lifelong message or culture can be created. So.
In here in Israel, like in many countries, we have this terrible exam system. You know, one test after another test after another test.
Yeah.
And what do we? I'm against exams altogether. I think that we should not impose on our children. Imagine if adults had to take exams every week.
Yeah, it's tough, but also I think it's the industrial revolution, the paper pencil ideas, when there was competition for jobs, and how else do you do that? But I still think in a country like India, where there are few jobs and so many people, I don't know of an alternative. Like I don't agree with it. I don't agree with exams, but I don't know on a practical level what else we can. I mean, now we have, well, I'm sure in Israel also you have standard-based grading. So grading is based on a standard. If you can meet the standard rather than a numerical grade. So, it's like A, B, C or whatever.
No. We have numerical grades.
Oh, you have numerical. In the Indian system, we still have in the local national system, but in the system I teach in the international baccalaureate, we we moved away a little. Like we don't have these percentages like 90 and so on. It's a 1 to 7 scale, and if you can meet a standard, then you get there. So that's a good thing. I think it's a criterion based. So not rank based. So.
Mm-hmm. So, but do you think that we're preparing young people for the world?
I don't think so. No, I don't think exams. But then, with the introduction of life skills or service learning, or like in the IB program, we have something called theory of knowledge. So we ask students to pause and say, this is a course you have to do. It's not even philosophical, but it says, how do you know what you know? Don't say it because you know it for physics, you know it in chemistry, but how exactly do you know? Is it memory or emotion or language, or is it an area of knowledge that provides you this? So these are kind of things that they're doing in education. They're saying, let's pause and see, let's look, let's be reflective.
That's wonderful. At what level?
At the 11th and 12th grade. So every 11th and 12th grader who does the baccalaureate program and graduates with an international baccalaureate has to do 3 things. One is a course called Theory of Knowledge. Second is an extended essay of 4,000 words written over 2 years of something they're passionate about. And third is a program called CAS, Creativity, Action and Service. So over 18 months, they have to demonstrate that they've done, earlier it was hour-based, 50 hours of creativity, 50 of service, 50 of action. They've removed that and said, just be reflective on that. Just do an activity and reflect, because we don't want to monitor it with hours. Then students feel pressure to just do it mechanically. So some of those things, some are falling through the cracks. It's not a perfect system, but at least it's there. The idea behind it is right, so.
Is it now a big thing in India?
And not in, so I'm afraid I'm not talking so much from the Indian local system, because I'm teaching in the international school, and the international baccalaureate is getting bigger, but of course the majority of students still do the local national exams, which is the Central Board of Education, and they're trying to build in new ideas, but a lot of the learning is still rote. It's still just paper, pencil, and passing the test. And so
you would think that after 200 years since Sir Robert Owen, we might have learned a little bit.
I know, that's the thing. But
when you talked about the Dalai Lama, I thought of Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi, who is the maybe European equivalent, who was the father of the kindergarten. And he said that good education is from the head, the hand, and the heart.
Correct, yeah.
And this was only 250 years ago.
Yeah. And a lot of schools in Sweden and so on, they're educating kids in the open air by the streams and the forests and the whole natural intelligence idea. Howard Gardner in education came up with this whole theory of multiple intelligences. And while they had linguistic and musical and spatial and so on, they've actually added a naturalist intelligence. Students who are intelligent with the environment too. So yeah, there's so much to be done. I remember this thing of education exploded when I realized that we just teach as if every kid is understanding the same way, and then suddenly you realize students have so many different types of intelligence, so teach differently.
Students, sometimes I think that they're almost like people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I actually changed my thinking when I started reading about how multiple intelligences, for example, I would teach history and they'd always write an essay as an end of a unit, summative. And then one day I said, okay, write a song. but you have to demonstrate the decline of Rome through a song. And here are some criteria. And some of the kids who were not good at essays suddenly, wrote a rap and wrote those kind of things. So, education can be made so interesting if we diversify it a little.
So, and what if a student wants to choreograph a dance?
Yeah, and why not? So long as you can show me that you've understood the topic, right? That you've understood why Rome declined, for example, or why Indians rose and why nationalism arose in India. Do it through a song, do it through a dance, do it through a poem, do it through a novel, whatever, a dialogue. But that's exciting. And then you have to set those rubrics, so there's a little more work for the teacher then, because then the assessment criteria have to be clear. But it works, it's well worth it, because students will blossom. Those same students who could hardly write an essay will suddenly blossom, or do an art piece on that, and so on.
Yes, so you must be an incredible teacher.
Oh, I like I said, I always feel I'm not that well prepared. I think the kids will catch me one day, but so far it's been good. The students appreciate, and I get these nice notes. My own children say, "Ma, are your kids normal? They're writing to you, thank you, Miss Garg, because of you, we want to do history and all." They say young people don't do that. So I said, maybe I'm blessed, I'm lucky, I get the good students. So
some people would call it karma.
Yeah, that's true. You still haven't asked me about all my beliefs on Hinduism. I have a different take. I feel people misunderstand Hinduism with these 100,000, 33,000 gods. But really, it's a whole different philosophy, actually.
Vera, can you do it in 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'll try. Because what I say is
I'm going to get my tea then.
Okay. So
if it's spiritual, I need some tea.
Yeah, you do that. So should I pause or should I carry on?
No, you shouldn't pause, because we don't know all the people who are watching now.
That's right.
Whether they might be drinking their tea already.
That's true. So the thing about Hinduism is that there's this misunderstanding that there are hundreds and thousands of gods, but ultimately, actually, there's just the belief in one. Not even God, it's energy. Actually, it's called Brahman. And so there is this universal energy, and then there's the individual soul. So each person has part of that energy. And the ultimate goal in Hinduism is for your individual soul to join up with the energy of the God. In order to do that, there are various ways. One way is to attach yourself to a type of God and get enlightenment. The other way is through knowledge. So these are all means, but ultimately there's this misunderstanding that Hindus are ritualistic and they keep believing in God, a particular God and all. They're basically trying to break their cycle of birth and death, which we talked about. Hindus believe in reincarnation, but reincarnation is not a good thing. So you're trying to break that cycle by your individual soul joining with the universal energy. And that's the ultimate philosophy. And so this is called the Vedanta. So there were many Vedas in India, and the Vedanta was the end of the Vedas, which talks about the goal of Hindus. And your goal is to break the cycle of birth and death by doing good action, good devotion, and gaining knowledge, so that and that's why the action part, karma, doesn't actually mean fate. It means action, that your action will determine your fate, in a sense. So if you do good action, you can break this cycle and you'll become God. So actually, this sounds blasphemous, but in Hinduism, there's no difference between man and God, human and God, because that energy, which is God, created the energy within you. And when you die, you want that energy to go back. And so you must do good action, and so you must do good belief. And so it's not about, I don't go to temple and I don't believe in any particular God, but I'm a good Hindu because I believe in that philosophy. So.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that was.
My grandfather, may he rest in peace, my maternal grandfather, he would say that the most important thing of being Jewish is to be a good human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so true. Actually, the thing is, I've seen so many people in my life who get up in the morning, ring the bells, pray, put the tika, and then they go and trouble people and they exploit people, you know. That's the that's not what the religion is saying. It's saying be
So
good.
they're going to be reincarnated quite a
They
few
will be
times.
reincarnated for sure. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we're going towards the end of this interview, and I know we're going to be in touch in the education sphere. I'm very excited about this.
Yes.
But before we go, I have to ask you a very important question that I ask everybody,
Yeah.
and that's about the Beatles.
Oh, I love the
You're
Beatles.
you're a musician.
Yeah, I've trained in classical, in Indian Hindustani music. Yeah. But I love the Beatles. Oh my God, I saw their show in Las Vegas. What is that? La, La, La Cirque? What? Cirque du Soleil?
Yeah.
They do these shows, and they were doing one on the Beatles, and it began with Get Back. You know, Jojo was a man who thought he was alone, and then they played all my favorite songs. It was just delightful. Here Comes the Sun, and so on. So I just loved. I mean, I grew up with the Beatles, right? I was born in 1959, so it was the 60s and 70s when we only heard the Beatles. So I just, and then of course George Harrison had a personal connect with India, and he came to Dehradun and he wrote a song on Dehradun. So yeah, the Beatles are wonderful, wonderful. What is your take on the Beatles, Mel?
No, Vera, this show is about you, dear.
But I'm curious. I'm curious.
Oh, I teach academic courses on popular music.
Okay, okay.
The Beatles, you know, they changed my life. It's not just me. So, do you have a favorite song?
I have a favorite song. I think Norwegian Wood. It's just beautiful. And then Here Comes the Sun. There's so many. Even she was just 17. I
One
grew up
second.
with Beatles, so yeah.
Okay, but you're the first person on the show. Actually, you're the first person I've interviewed who chose Norwegian Wood.
Oh, that's really what do most people choose?
Oh, there's all kinds of, they choose all kinds of songs. Hey Jude, Let It Be, and some would choose I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Right,
and you chose Norwegian Wood.
Must be the spiritual Hindu part of me, you know, with George Harrison on his guitar and so on. So
yes, but this is Norwegian Wood is a song of betrayal.
And can you remind? I don't even remember the words offhand. It's just a blank.
No, it doesn't matter. It's a great song, and of course, it has this Indian side to it, right?
Yeah, and it begins with "I once had a." What is
I once had a girl, or should I say,
yes.
she once had me.
It's so beautiful. It was my favorite song when I was growing up.
It's an incredible song.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. Yeah.
As soon as the show is over, I'm going to play it again.
I know, I'm going to go and play it too. I was just thinking the same thing because I haven't heard it for a while, but yeah.
Can you sing a few bars, just the beginning of it?
No, I don't want to risk it. I'm a shy. I don't. But
no, but Vera, we're towards the end of the show.
I know I'm a bit shy with that.
But you told me you're not afraid of anything except cats and roller coasters.
But shy is different to being afraid. So
that was wonderful.
Thank
Vera
you.
Garg, I am so incredibly happy to meet you. I don't know when we will meet in this particular reincarnation, but I hope we do meet here in Israel or in England or in New Delhi. But I do hope that we are in touch and can do a few good things together for young people.
Yeah, it was great being here. Thank you, Mel.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And we'll be in touch. And thanks so much. I hope everybody enjoyed speaking to you as much as I did.
Thank you. It was lovely. Bye-bye.
And regards to Ash.
I will. I'll tell him. Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.